A meeting to order at 7:03. And thank you to those who are joining in person, and thank you to those who are joining online. First up, we're gonna do roll call. So Christina Davis, that's me, I'm here. Pam Summers, here. Angie DeSanto. Does not look like she's here. Keith Lipker,
Here.
Judy Austin, here. Paul Varga.
Here.
Tim Rhodes, I know it's not gonna be here, he wasn't feeling well this evening. Khalid Love,
I'm here.
you're here with a very distinguished looking background. I'm assuming that's not real. Maybe not, okay, we'll see. And, Hugh McKenzie. I do not see. Okay, Angie did request, that someone be seated on her behalf, so Khalid, I'm gonna seat you for Angie DeSanto. Okay, communications. So I received, a revised grand list total from the assessor. The new number is $370,305,034, up slightly from the previous number, not a dramatic difference, but up slightly. So we can use that in our calculations, the new number. We had a member at the last in-person meeting when the Board of Ed presented their budget, ask a follow-up question, which was, how many paraprofessionals does the school have? And so I followed up with Cindy Ford, and she told me that there are 20 total paraprofessionals, 13 and a half special education, and 16 and a half regular education. We also received just trying to get the correct name, a follow-up memorandum, I guess you would say, from the town attorney. And we got the final audit, which there are print copies available, and they are also on the town website. And we've heard back from a handful of auditing firms regarding our RFP. Some have said they aren't interested, and a couple have said they are, and one has asked a lot of questions, which we are asking our team members to complete. And just a reminder, the deadline for RFP submissions is March 26th. So lots going on. So that's it for communications. And next up, we have public comments. We do, just as a reminder, have a 3-minute time limit on public comment. And obviously, if you could state your name clearly before you speak, if you speak. So with that, would anybody like to make a public comment? Okay, very good. Sounds like there's no public comment. All right, next up on the agenda, we have approving minutes of first we have our regular meeting, which was February 22nd, 2024. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Motion to approve the minutes. Okay, Judy Austin made the motion. Can I have a second? Pam made the second. Okay, any discussion on these minutes? Again, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, February 22nd, regular meeting. I had one edit. So on page 2, in the 1, 2, 3rd paragraph, the 1, 2, 3, 4th sentence, it currently says the town is funding the after-school program this year. It's actually ARPA and ESSA grants are funding the after-school program this year. We just need to make that change.
Where was that?
Second page of the minutes for February 22nd. And it's third paragraph.
Okay.
Okay, if there aren't any other edits, we can vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, next up, we have the special meeting minutes. This was from Wednesday, February 28th. This was a Zoom meeting only. And this was the meeting where the long-awaited audit was finally presented. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved,
Is that Keith?
yes.
So Keith made that motion and we need a second.
Second,
Judy beat you, sorry, Paul.
Okay. That's okay.
Any comments or edits for the special meeting minutes? Okay, and I'll just say kudos to Valerie, our recording secretary, for her hard work on the minutes. I think we've kind of gotten it down to a system now where we're all working together, and it is challenging when we have so many numbers. So she's doing a great job and we appreciate her. I don't have any edits for this one. So I will ask for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous approval. All right, so we got through the boring part. Thank you, everybody. Next up on the agenda is the presentation of the proposed 2024-2025. I use the word proposed twice. General government budget by the Ashford Board of Selectmen, and I do see our selectmen all here. Thank you so much for attending. So we'll do that first, and then we'll talk about the capital improvement plan proposal. And I can, oh, did we lose people? No, people just went off camera. That's okay. So what I can do, Catherine, if you want me to, at this point, I can call up the presentation if you'd like, or if you want to
Sure.
talk a little bit first.
What I would like to do is at least, thank the people who really helped get this presentation done. I want to thank Chris for not only being so helpful, but also for keeping me chained to my desk so that we can get it done. And then, Sherry, it could not have been done without Sherry, and, we were able to work around some of the, craziness in doing this. We were able to work together. There were some numbers that needed to be fixed in the system. There's certainly, I had typos in this, so I'll take you through them. And also my fellow selectmen, we met 3 times in working meetings to go through everything. And the fire department, in particular, Paul Varga, because he presented to our board and gave us a lot of detail. He also provided me with a lot of details prior to that. And so if anybody wants to see that whole presentation, it is one of the meetings, one of our last meetings, and it was recorded. So, and then last but not least, by any means, my husband, Jeff, who has been so helpful and supportive. So, let's go right into the budget.
Okay.
Or proposed budget. I have, there were some typos, which I will take you through. There are some replacement pages for some of you, so you can put them in. And I thank you for pointing them out. It just so happens that those were actually in areas where I hand typed and which I fat fingered some things and picked up some wrong totals. But the detail summary page, or the detail pages are correct. They are from the system directly. They were, Sherry downloaded them, dropped them into Excel for me, and that's what we worked with.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second. Can the people on Zoom see the presentation? Says Ashford Board of Selectmen on the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it, great. Okay, and then people in the audience.
Let me know if you can't hear me. Okay, so looking at page slide 2. This is an overview. And, we certainly had a lot of requests and some pretty hefty ones. So at this point in time, the general government proposed budget is $4,330,291. That's a $491,051 dollar increase and a 12.79% increase. And I realize you have never seen one like this before. Okay, neither have we. So, we're working with it as best we can. I liked what the Board of Ed did with their presentation, in terms of the overview, so I kind of copied what they did, and I made note of the, insurance rate, which is expected, to, increase to 29.5%. And that was the carrier quote as of March 1st. So that is what the selectmen have worked with. We realized that the school elected to use a 20% increase, but what we have from that carrier is 29.5. And, we're not, at this point in time, we're not assuming the risk of it being a lot lower. So I'm hoping it will come down before we get to referendum, before we get to the town meeting. So here you've seen some of this information before. One of the things that's on here is the addition of a DPW custodian transfer station attendant. That is a new person on staff that was brought in 2023, I think it was November. And so it's fiscal year 2024. And also contractual increases in employee wages for fiscal year 24 are included in the fiscal year 25 totals for wages. So let me tell you why that is. There is a description that I provided in the answers to questions. So with that, I'll just do it all down like that. Every year for the last number of years, we have had a 1-year contract with the union. And that contract has been approved after referendum, so approved for the next fiscal year, but it was done after the referendum for that. So we were not able to, and this has been a practice we've done for years, we were not able to put the salary increases for people for 2024 in their salary lines. Instead, what we've always done is we've put some money in contingency to cover the increases that we anticipate are going to come. So for 2022, 2023, what you would see is that the budget for salaries for a particular individual on the list, so to speak, would or a department. I'll use an example. Salary for the tax collector. You'd see that for the fiscal year 24 budget that was approved, it wouldn't show the 3% increase that was agreed to with the union. So, and I'll take it back to 2023. You wouldn't see it there. You would see it in the actuals for that year, for that person, that role. So when it comes to 2024, we didn't have them for that, and we are in the middle of fiscal year 2024. So we approved a contract with union, I believe it was in November. It was in November, and that was a 3-year contract for 3% each year for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26. So when you look at the fiscal year 25 budget numbers for salaries, what you'll see is both the 3% for fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, because we now know what it's going to be because we have a 3-year contract and it's laid out in the contract. Any questions about that? It makes it look like salaries are inflated in fiscal year 25. They're not. It's 3% for 24 is in there and 3% for 25. And that's only because we now know them. So it is a little daunting when you're going to look at it, a little shocking, but that is the case. Okay, shared services with Ashford School. We share all of these items that are listed. We have an unfunded and partially funded mandate, the Connecticut legislative mandate to support early voting. I can say I don't think any of us are pleased with that because, and particularly the registrars of voters, because it means that they have to increase their staff for the number of days that early voting is going on. Okay. Any questions about the overview?
I had one over.
Sure.
Question. So you said the transfer station attendant,
Yes,
that was the one that was in the budget last year that we finally got this year.
it's in fiscal year 24. He was
Okay.
hired.
Yeah, because last year I have it as in the budget as,
What am I looking at? Was
additional.
this part of another, the other?
This
item?
was last year's.
He was hired.
It
Oh,
wasn't for last year.
Yeah.
Was it, but we didn't fill it. We hadn't filled it until the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so it's the same person.
Yes. Okay, so it's 24. Thank you. After flubbing some numbers in this, in the summary section, I'm double checking everything I do. All right, so I took a stab at showing apportionment for the various things that this budget supports. So general government management, it has an asterisk, but the note didn't show up. And that is not only the departments in the town departments, it's also all of the boards, commissions, and committees. Actually, boards and commissions, because I don't think we have funds in there for committees, economic development. So that covers all of what I would consider to be management of the town. And if we didn't have those volunteers on those boards, we would not have a full town's view and input. Insurance and benefits is as it says, buildings and utilities, the same. Community programs and services are the Parks and Rec and the senior center, the senior, I'm forgetting title. Or this should leave it at senior center. So, and that is all of the costs associated with those. Public safety is as it's shown, the fire department, the emergency management director, and the fire marshal. DPW, public works, same thing, this is as it says. The transfer station is carved out. And GL and other is pretty much everything else. Any questions about this? And you can, don't spend any time. I thought it would be good for you to be able to see what we have for staff. And all of the ones that are noted as part-time, I'm sorry, all of the ones that are not noted as part-time are actually full-time. So we have full-time, not noted, part-time is noted, and contractors are noted. So if you look at, for example, land use building department, we have a clerk, she's full-time, building official is a contractor, zoning enforcement officer, inland wetlands agent, health inspector, it happens to be Eastern Highlands. And you'll see in highway public works, the positions we have there that are full-time, and we have a temporary employee that's part-time. And the new transfer, the DPW custodian transfer station attendant. But by the way, originally was under transfer station and he's been moved up to the other. And then Parks and Rec, we have a Parks and Recreation director. Any questions about the staff? I will tell you that when we contract with the union for salaries, and benefits, when, it came to the 3%, typically, each year, whatever the union contract said is the percentage, or whatever we've agreed to with them, is the same percentage that we give, we give that same percentage to the non-union employees. Okay, so here's my first page of correction, and actually there's two, I want to explain them. Wages, contractual increases, what you're seeing are the 3% for 1 year and the 3% for 2025. Highway Public Works staff, you may see that the two numbers under there don't add up. I just showed what were the real bumps in it. That was the addition of the attendant and part-time administrative support. What we have found is that in the municipalities around us, the Public Works has an administrative helper. And Casey has enlisted, it's certainly been very helpful. He's had someone come in, one of our part-time people, come in and help organize the things in the DPW office. And the filing system that they had was pretty interesting because it was kind of things shoved around on the desk under things and whatever. And so she has been helping them clean that up. And he also feels that he needs help with the purchase orders and some of the paperwork that has to get done. He spends a lot of his time either coming up with schedules and that kind of thing, working directly with the other employees in the department, but he's also out there with them many times on site when they're doing work. So, I can't imagine, once I realized that there was a value to an administrative assistant helping him, I kind of can't imagine how other public works directors could have managed without somebody. So they do have them. Casey did some research on that.
So, just to make sure I understand, so this is $5,000 for the full fiscal
For
year?
the year.
So this person is working how many hours a week? Like,
It varies.
yeah.
It varies, but it was calculated out as $5,000 across the entire year. Not used, it might be used once a week. Okay, but for a number of hours.
Gotcha. Okay.
DPW, their equipment increase, primarily, truck parts and repairs. We've got an aging vehicle list, if you will. Equipment parts and repairs, 10,000 as well. And, tools, he's trying to invest in making sure that they have adequate tools. This is the first time he's put in something for tools. Ellen, recall?
Last couple of years, Joe had put in a little bit.
I didn't see it in
Get
there,
up to
okay.
date.
Registrar of voters, this is entirely related to early voting. And, the selectmen are, we did talk with the registrar of voters, both of them. And, they did reduce their request or agreed to reduce their request a bit, but couldn't go any lower than this. Employee benefits, the insurance rate we applied was 29.5%. We do hope that changes, but that's what we know right now. And the 24 add to DPW plus status changes. So this is adding on the new employee and it changes for one person, one family, actually a two-person, a couple, and they have had a child. So they are now family coverage. The fire department, I'd like to clarify this, and I could never do justice to what I say about the fire department because I am not the most knowledgeable about their operations. Paul has been very good in trying to help me understand what that is. And so this add two full-time firefighters is not really, it's really oversimplified. And once we get to the, we're gonna go through the questions as well. The answers to the questions.
I mean, we're not gonna go through every single one of them, but that one I think we'll probably wanna spend some
Okay, we'll
time
go through that one. So I'm just letting you know that this is truly oversimplified, and that was me trying to grasp what I was being told and going, okay, well, that comes down to this. Well, it's much more complex than this. The other thing was I had made an error. I had 8 PTO days for each full-time employee, 6 PTO days for each. Sorry, 6 PTO days each for full-time employees. Before I had said 8. And I'm sure that how this is described is not necessarily the best way either, but there was, it's just to give you a sense of it. Recreation fund, the, $17,338 increase is primarily salaries and benefits, contractual services, and mowing. And the mowing is not the mowing that the DPW does, or Public Works does. It is the mowing that is done, basically to keep, I think Sherry's here, to keep the fields in shape.
Ashford Memorial Park.
Ashford Memorial Park, and you will find that written up in the, questions and responses to questions that were raised. So here's where Catherine fat-fingered things. Okay, I was tired, no excuse, but this was something that I had entered, myself. And it was just to provide a summary by department so that you could have that at a glance view. And to show what was adopted, the previous year, what was proposed and what's being proposed and the amount of change. So the highlighted items are the ones that have been corrected, and those are the correct numbers.
Should I go to the next one?
And I don't know that we want to go through each one, because I don't know.
Well, does anybody have a question about this slide? We could stop and ask questions if people have them.
Yeah.
No?
Okay, next slide.
Next one.
Any questions about this one?
I do, and I think it's somewhat addressed in the questions and answers, but so the registrar of voters, and the 8,500 here.
Yeah.
There is some state money that is gonna come our way to help supplement. this?
Right, but not enough to offset this.
Okay,
Okay, now, and incredibly enough, I don't know what they were thinking or smoking. Because what the state's done is they're giving the same amount to each municipality in the state. Which doesn't make sense to me because of the number of voters in each of the municipalities. I would think that you would need more to be able to support multiple locations within a town or whatever. Oh, you have some information on that? Great.
Oh, so, the dollar amount that was given to each municipality is $10,500. And that money needs to be used between now and the end of the year. So you will see probably the bulk of that money will be used during this fiscal year because of the new things that are mandated that the registrars have to buy in order to have, the early voting, because they need to have certain boxes that you vote in. You need to have zipped bags that these ballots go into every single day. So, and the number of ballots that have to be printed also for these early voting. So that money, we don't know if it's gonna come again. The towns receive that money now and they'll be using it because there's 2 primaries this current year, and you have to have the early voting before those for this, so.
Right.
So again, number of ballots, when I think about New London, and I think about Ashford,
Yes.
it's a big difference in the number of ballots, and I wonder.
Yes, and then the other new thing that came down, and I don't know if Ashford falls into it, but the new thing that just came down this week is that you need to provide your ballots in Spanish also. So it's not just English, they have to be bilingual. So certain towns are getting hit with that expense also. So sure, if Ashford's gonna have that happen
Yeah.
here, you'll hear about it, but that is something that has never been done in the past, so.
Any other questions about this slide? Okay, next slide. And while you see that employee benefits looks like it's 21.89%, that's the total of employee benefits, it's not just the insurance.
That is correct.
And I forgot, what year do we finish paying for these buildings? Do you remember? Because our general obligations are going down.
I do not.
It's within a couple of years, I think. Do you recall, Bill?
What was the question?
Want that.
Bond debt,
I
It's
think
going-
last year is the last year.
that's what, okay, good,
I mean, I think next year is the last.
exactly.
Yeah, it's close. Let's see if I have that.
Of course,
But then,
well,
of course, then we've got
With the
the
issue
bond
with
issue
issue
that's gonna
with
be
the school.
kicking in. And
Mhm.
one, if I could just mention a
Sure.
couple of things. One thing, and I think it's helpful to realize one of the exhibits here about what the town contributes and partners with the school. One thing that I don't think the general public, some officials aren't aware of, there are a couple of things in here that aren't shown. One of them is any bonding relating to school expansion or repairs or whatever. Those are covered within the general government, budget.
yeah, ours.
I don't think people realize that. There are things years ago we picked up where we don't charge. I remember getting, back in the early nineties, we were billing the school for snow plowing. We waived that, and we do the plowing for them. Right now, that probably equates to between 25 and 30,000 a year for the school alone. That's a cost that people don't realize that the town puts in to the school, and their operations. The only other thing I wanted to touch on, and Catherine touched on it, but I know one of your members at the last meeting was talking about, well, last year we showed 20% increase in insurance, but it became 17. That's been going on for years, and I think our board has always felt that we'd rather err on the side of caution, figuring the high cost, than be shorted. We will finish a budget period and then be hit with a price that's much higher than we were anticipating for. So I know the school, and they have a lot more flexibility in transferring line items, and that has chosen to go with a less amount, I guess 20 instead of the 29.5. Ours does reflect, and I'm just reiterating what was already said, the 29.5, with hopes that it's gonna come in lower. That may be a variation. We've experienced it from year to year. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury to predict it. We go by what our providers are giving us and anticipating costs, and also our insurance consultants.
Did you have, were there any more conversations with the Board of Ed about, changing carriers, insurance carriers?
I know that Dina said that they were, I don't know if the right term is going out to bid, but they were hoping to hear from additional carriers. And that they did the same thing last year and nobody came back. And so I don't know what the status is right
What's
now.
the name of the state program?
Partnership.
the partnership program. There's been discussion we sat down with the state 2 years ago and talked about going in with joining the state partnership program. They were coming in with about the same increase as our existing carrier had it in that year. And then last minute, they jumped up like 7% on us, so we decided not to go with that. And we had meetings with the school, with the town, with the people from the state, as well as our insurance consultant. It didn't work out. And I understand last year, there was legislation that was being considered within committee to make the state partnership program mandated to municipalities. It passed committee, but it didn't come out of committee. I'm told that that's gonna be considered for next year. So that may be something down the line, another one of these so-called unfunded mandates that's forced down our throats whether we want it or not. That's the only big other entity that's in the game with ensuring health plans for municipalities, are those two as it stands right now.
There's something to be said for being part of a larger pool. I know that the Board of Ed had, they paid over $1 million in premiums, but they had over $2 million in claims. And I don't know the exact figures, but that's when you have a smaller pool, that kind of causes the prices to go up. And we too, on our end.
Town benefits by partnering with the schools because they do have the numbers.
Right.
Last several years, they've had exceptionally high loss ratios at the school, and unfortunately, the town, from our perspective, has suffered for talent.
Right.
Yeah, it's too bad too that they've gone out to bid, or at least explored that, but they're not getting responses, because usually you do, and you
That's
get
right.
it at, yeah, you usually can get it for a lower price, but yeah, I guess maybe they're looking at their loss ratios.
Mm.
If you have a few good years, then maybe you'll get,
Right.
there'll be an appetite from somebody, but,
It's an underwriting issue.
yeah, exactly.
And that's right up your alley.
Sherry, you look like you were gonna say something.
Yes, about, insurance, I can tell you the broker has been working, on the information. In fact, I touched base with Dina before I came here tonight, and, we're expecting information back Monday, Tuesday next week, so see where it goes from there and do at the moment.
Yeah, we'll adjust accordingly. Next, any other questions about this slide? Any comments? Okay, the next one. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but I had the wrong totals in here. I will tell you that the adopted total is correct. That's what's in the system, actually, is correct from the system. However, the referendum had it as 3,839,250.
Yeah, it's
Right,
10,000.
so we're going with 40?
I just put what was in the system.
That's fine.
These numbers match.
Want to make sure we all use the same number moving
Yeah.
forward.
Okay. And then, if there are no questions about this slide, we can go to the next one. And this is estimated revenues. And, as you go down, as you look at this, when you are looking at the red numbers and get down to taxes, what we have in there, we didn't put, how do we do this? We did not put, we put the taxes that we know that we would be collecting. Where's Linda? She here?
She's on Zoom.
Oh, there she is. What we knew that the estimates we already had for those that we knew we'd be collecting. And also, we did not put in what, when all is said and done, will be
The current levy.
what the current levy will, what the fiscal year 25 levy will be. Because we don't know what it is. So, Linda, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
I don't know if she's, I'm sharing, so she can't, hold on. There she is. Hi, Linda.
Okay. I think that you did a good job with presenting it, and that bottom line number of the current levy comes after all the calculations are done. And as long as you use the 98% and ask me to get the 98%, the final number comes from the mill rate page and the calculations after the estimated revenues from the state, from the federal, and then the expenses, and then that number is given to me. So it's fair how it is presented.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on this one? The education and cost sharing was confirmed with the school. And you. Next slide then. Any? So this is a section that is actually brought down from the system. It has all of the line items and it's just in a more readable format. The, when you see the colorization here, and I don't know if I got them all right because I had to go through trying to figure out what everything was. But the darker orange are full-time people and the lighter orange are part-time people. So with this one, you'll see that it's interesting. You'll see that it looks like 6.9%. So that is 3% for 2024 plus 3% for 2025. And the way the calculation is done, you calculate 3% against the what was for fiscal year 23. And then you take that total and you calculate 3% against that. And so that's why you'll see something that looks strange, that it's 6.09% because of the way the second calculation is done. And that is the proper way to do it. So going through here, I do have an explanation that is in the question, the responses to the questions about how we shifted monies around to accommodate part-time and full-time needs in the part-time in the assessor's office, in the tax collector's office, and full-time in the finance office. So I would like to tell you now, I'm gonna be teary-eyed on stakes. We have hired Sherry full-time.
Oh,
So I hope that you are as delighted as we are. And her start date is April 1st. No kidding, no fooling. Yes, merit to apply. And we are so happy to have you on board in a true full capacity.
so wait, you'll be in the building
You
Monday
bet.
through Friday?
Well, not Thursday, but.
Not Thursday. Okay. But still,
Yeah.
that's a tremendous.
Although you never know.
Yeah, they do. So that's, when we get to that, you'll see that, the treasurer wages and position has gone up. But,
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we, I think I'm struggling to understand what's happening. So that makes sense. Okay, so we've got now a treasurer who's gonna be full-time in the building, right? And then we'll continue to have the part-time person in that department as well?
You're talking about Laura?
Right,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
yeah, okay.
She's a deputy treasurer and she has other functions that she takes care of, payroll, that kind of thing.
Okay,
But when we get to it, but one of the things is that based upon the number of hours and the availability and that kind of thing, there are some things that need to be taken care of that have not been able to be taken care of. And part of it is, I think there's some reporting and some other things as well.
Yeah, pension, there's some things that are usually on maybe twice a year or once a year that have kind of to the backside a little bit. They get done, but it's always the last minute where some of those things. And, some of the grant reporting things, for, if you apply for steep grants, low SIP, anything like that. There's, depending on requirements from the different agencies on what has to be done, so we meet those reporting deadlines too.
And we've also had, there've been some things that Chris has had to carry
Yes.
that are really not part of her role. And she's done a great job, and thank God you've been there,
Yes.
but we're trying to make sure that we're using her brain power and skills for other things that the selectmen need.
So that's the finance office.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And then what are we doing in the assessor office and the tax collector office?
So if you'll, everybody has them, so you don't necessarily need to put it up on the screen. But if you look at the question, the responses to the responses to the general government questions, and you look at item, question 10, it says several slides show movement in staffing allocations, assessor aid, tax collector aid, adjustment to staffing and finance office. Okay, and how can you outline how you plan or have done, work this out? So, this is what was worked out. During the last 2 fiscal years, funds were allocated but not used to add staff to the following departments: Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen's clerk, in that department, and finance, the financial admin assistant, wages, what the line item is called. So these are funds that were not used because we were trying to figure out how to restructure the finance department and trying to get a better grasp on some of the changing needs of the other departments. So what we did was assessed operations of the finance department and the part-time support needs in the Board of Selectmen, assessor, and tax collector departments, and determined that these reallocations would improve our operational stability and effectiveness. So we reduced the amount of part-time Board of Selectmen's clerk support needed in the Board of Selectmen department, brought it down to 11,178. If you look at the chart that's here, which will see that for fiscal year 24, that was estimated at 38,278. So we took that down, and you'll see the difference there in red. Then with the assessor, we had, she had no support and definitely needs it. So hers was 0, and so it's estimated at $9,100. Tax collector, the assistant, she had part-time wages. If you look at the second line there for tax collector, she had $6,600 in part-time wages. And rather than that, one of the things, and Linda, you can speak to this if you want, is we're really looking at kind of, I almost want to say investing. We have someone who's working there now as a part-time person, and Linda definitely needs more hours for the work that she's doing. By the way, I will tell you that I'm a person who is a little bit of a workaholic, and so I'm here later at night, and so is the tax collector, and so is the assessor. They are salaried, and they are here working what I believe are extra hours. Because they're here, sometimes they're one of the assessors, sometimes they're after our fact.
So is so the part-time support in the assessor department at 9,100, that person would be one day a week, like what is the frequency, or do we not?
Did I put that? I might have put it in here some way, somewhere. I cannot remember the exact calculations, but I can tell you that I sat down with these people and challenged them. Linda, you can attest to that, right? Because we had multiple meetings about this, because we wanted to be very clear about what they needed.
And so,
And they have peak periods.
and is the idea, is this gonna be one person that floats between the two offices,
No.
two separate people?
No, and there's a reason for that. The person who is working in the tax collector office is the daughter of the assessor. So we would not want to have any issues around that. We cannot have that person working, she can't be working for her mom. Okay,
And so the person who's in the tax collector department right now, part-time, she's at a certain level, and then this would give her more hours?
more hours that Linda
Yes.
needs.
Right.
Yes.
Linda doesn't have enough hours.
Okay,
And this person apparently is doing a very nice job. Linda, did you want to pipe in?
Yes, if I may, and there is a historical background, and I don't want to take you, I'll briefly summarize that there used to be two full-time assistants in both offices. And the time came that we morphed into a shared position of 28 hours. Line items were shifted around, and that worked out nicely, but another town took that person because we did such a good job of training the person that they went somewhere else and made more money. And then the assessor and myself, or more myself, I would take part-time help. But what I have found through COVID is that we built in a lot of efficiencies. We use the online presence, which is very nice. We're over $2 million of people using online. However, what I am finding through COVID and through the DMV registrations being extended to 3 years is that is the category that needs a lot more man hours. We have something like 265 apartment units. That's a transient population, student population. And the last thing that many people do when they move is change their addresses with DMV. And so right now, my real estate levy is at 98.41%. Okay, so now I'm pushing from now until June 30th with the demands, the intent to lien. My motor vehicles is at 90 point something%. Of course, the levy is, I have a 10 million plus real estate levy and a 1,400,000 motor vehicle levy, but it needs a lot of attention. It's 4,800 accounts, and I need that clerical support. And it takes a lot of investigation and detective work and correspondence, mailings and emails. And that's why I've asked for that increased clerical support.
So, part of the history of this in terms of having support back when and then not having support, particularly or the kind of support that's needed over in particular the last 3 years. If you look at the response to question 22, this is an explanation of the assessor's aid, which is aid. That gives the history if we wanted to look at some of the history on this. So going back to the shifting of reallocation of resources, when all is said and done, after moving this and doing the estimates of this, what it really, the net impact is a reduction of $12,284. Now, granted, that 88,278 wasn't being used. So that's a factor in that.
okay, but thank you for pointing that out, because I think that's an important point. So that money essentially has been in the budget.
Right, it's
And
been
we're
in the
moving
budget,
it around.
and we went and finally came up with something that was workable and acceptable to everybody. And again, Linda can attest to getting challenged on how many hours a week. They have peak periods. And one of the other issues with sharing a resource between the tax collector's office and the assessor's office is they actually have some peak periods that coincide where you need extra resources and they would be sharing the same resource during that time.
Bill, it looked like you wanted to say something.
You know, it's relevant to this, that position has been being carried for the past 2 years in the selectmen's budget. And I don't think any of us were real comfortable with the term, but we called it a floating position. And conceptually, what we were talking about was what is now matured into what we're presenting to you now. But that floating position was gonna be a relief situation during peak periods of business for the assessor's office or the tax office, or sickness or illness, and also to give our administrator in the selectman's office some relief, whether it be a sickness or some peak times. And I think that position now is matured into what our board is presenting to you as an option for that. And it happens, we come out saving a few dollars, which is always helpful.
Regardless, we need the treasurer full-time.
That we do. No question.
Just wanted to make sure everybody knows that.
Well, actually, in that office, what we had was 2 people, but 3 positions before. We had Laura's position, we had a treasurer's position, Cheryl Baker was, and then we had a position called the administrative aide, which also was Cheryl Baker. But it was 2 people, so we're still gonna have 2 people. We just kind of, we're recommending to reorganize the office.
And in the finance department, having the floating person, the work of finance is pretty intricate. So having someone that's just floating, doing just, I hate to use the word grunt work, but very basic things is not that helpful to them. We really need the people who know how to work in the system, who understand the financial aspects of things, understand, who contacts are for things, all of that. So having a person who is just part-time coming in to help out doesn't really fit the scenario that we have. So, or the need that we have. Okay. So that gives you a sense of, this is just one department where things were shifted, but it gives you a sense of what the overall plan is for that. Okay, do we have any questions about the selectmen's budget? I did see that there was a question, I don't know where, I hope I understood it correctly, that it said something to the effect of why did some elected officials get more than other people for increases? And the increases in general were across the board. We did find one, and I thank whoever found it. We haven't actually told Laura yet. We did have for Laura, she did not get the fiscal year, she was not put down for the fiscal year 25 increase, the 3%. She only got, you'll see for her, it's only 3%. So somebody here caught that, and it's in the system that way, so we're going to address that.
Yeah.
And we haven't, she knows about it, but we haven't told her that it's gonna be fixed. So Sharon, you get to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so questions?
Yeah. So, back to the transfer station.
And bear with me, I can't hear you.
Back to the transfer station, person that was in the budget last year
Mhm.
for $45,000. Is that money still in the system also?
I couldn't hear all of what you said, so say it again, you were talking transfer station, not this page, a different one?
Right, we were talking about shifting funds. So last year,
Yeah, I was only talking about for those particular positions.
okay, so I'll wait until we get there.
Yeah, it'll be easier, I think. Okay, and the next page, where are we here? Webmaster. That is, I'm glad that we've had the reorganization that we have had in the finance department, because we used to have the webmaster in there, and now we have, it is a separate, it was just buried in the other budget, and so we have our webmaster. He's doing a very nice job.
Is that person in the town clerk's office? Is that right? So it's gonna stay that way?
Yeah.
With the new website, hopefully.
Oh, excuse me, I couldn't quite hear.
Since we are pursuing a new website, the same person will continue to maintain it once the new website rolls out. Is that the idea?
We will determine that once we see what the website's all about. The assumption is yes. And the webmaster is not a person who's necessarily maintaining it. They're kind of making sure that information gets out there. We have a company, that manages our website, does corrections to it, and that kind of thing. The new website, can't wait for that to happen. Okay, so in this one, let's see. Any questions? Going on to Norton Hall. These are all the general increases. And then we get to Town Hall. And with this, pretty straightforward. Town Properties, pretty straightforward. Going on to the Senior Center. There are two new items on here. And it is, and I think maybe you know a little bit about this. Van driver expenses and startup monies. So, Bill, we had talked about a revolving account. And I can't remember what you started.
Well, I call it a revolving, and I believe
It's an
I'm corrected.
activities.
It's an activity account.
Activities account.
Yeah.
Our treasurer corrected me. We think that will help with revenues, both with the senior center and with the rec department. But we have an expert here that's used it in a couple of other towns.
Just let them know that revenues don't necessarily get back to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked briefly here with Board of Finance about this account, which I know you guys thought already is in existence, but essentially what happens, I had told Kit when she did up her budget, put startup money, because you're gonna have something in it to start with. If you're gonna start doing programs, you're gonna have a little bit of seed money to start the program off. So basically what happens is a lot of her programs that she offers to the seniors, that can be essentially taken out of this budget. So if she's got a trip planned to go see a show at PPAC, so she essentially wouldn't say, it's gonna cost X amount of dollars. She sells tickets for that, goes through this activities account, and any money that she gets for those tickets also go into that activities. So it nets itself. So you can eliminate some of these programs that are in her department. So you would also be reducing your revenues, but I think she's got what, $2,700. So but she always goes over on her expenses for the programs. I mean, she could do that pretty quickly with different programs that happen. So those things would come out, and it's something that you could do for the rec department also. If somebody says to Sherry that they want to do a yoga class, let's just say, that can be offered through that activities account also. And if it doesn't, and if she doesn't get enough enough registrations rather, then you don't hold the program, nothing gained, nothing lost. You just don't hold the program, it doesn't happen. So you can move on to something else. When you have something that's in your budget, you're very limited. You list out, yoga, basketball, and those are pretty much the only programs you can do during that year. You can't offer something new if it came along, because you're kind of restricted with your budget. So that's something that proposing, this activities account to get it up and going for the July 1. And that's where Kit, put the monies to start, because say if we've got to buy tickets to something, you've got to put that money out first, and then you'll get it back when the tickets are sold.
So what I would anticipate is we would do a write-up saying, here's how it should work. In terms of proposals or whatever. This is how it should work. This is how it would work for the senior center. This is how it would work for,
Yes, because in my other towns, we just did a character breakfast, recreation just did a character breakfast. So it's not something that he runs through this activities program. So we had 170 people attend a character breakfast, so
tell them what a character preference is.
basically you have Princess Elsa, or, you know, that comes to, you know, miniature Disney. A little lower base, but, you know, people come and they can, you know, the kids, it's a kid program, so they meet all the characters, people come dressed up from, we have a couple different organizations out in Rhode Island that we deal with, and, but like I say, I mean, it has grown, I mean, it was from 80 people this past Saturday, you know, 170 to 180 people attended, so, you know, any of the expenses are part of the registration fee. So, and you don't have to have just, you know, Ashford residents, people from other towns could attend, you're paying, it's a, you know, a ticket. So they won't go, we have programs to go to shows, go to trips, you know, we do, I'm going into recreation, if you decided to do, baseball games, anything like that, you'd get a cost, what the fee is, and then, you know, charge the applicant, you know, the registration for, you know, you charge the registrant the fee, and
So what we'll do is we'll make sure we write this up so that we can show you how that would work.
I mean, what appealed to me is I think it gives us a mechanism to increase not only programs, but also revenues. Because it gives them more working money that they can be generated into the programs.
Exactly. Which we need to do.
And then I think too, right, the idea is that then what the money that's in the budget for the senior center or Parks and Rec is actually for like more structural things as opposed to these
summer
programs.
camp,
Right.
summer camp or Sterling, we use, my staples that, monies that have been there. After school program, summer camp, and basketball. So any other program that he runs, all through the rec activities account. And then that money that we generate for the revenue from the after school program, the summer camp and basketball are part of his revenues that he's expected to raise for the town. He puts a projected dollar amount in, and that's what his goal is, to raise that money. So you would take everything else out, you know, because, you know, say Sherry has a program and people don't sign up for it, when she's then stuck, she can't use that for something else. Because she's earmarked it in your budget line to, you know, to the board and saying, this is what we're gonna use it for. So you're kind of stuck, where you can revolve with the activities account.
And the other thing too is we'll make sure that the procedures around how this will work are provided and worked through with the senior center director and with the director. Okay, board of finance, I don't know what they're doing. Well, I do have a question for you. I'm assuming that the request is on the audit fees. I'm hoping that, you know, you're doing an RFP and I'm delighted that you're doing the RFP. So, we'll see where that comes in. Assessor. Wages, whatever. Oh, there was a question. Someone had the question of why do we see 0% for anything? Well, first of all, I said for anything that was a new position. And I wanted to point out, and I did put that in the responses to the questions. Why do we see 0% when we have the, you know, department request was 9,100, the adjusted was 9,100, and the dollar difference is 9,100? Well, the thing is, the way the percentage of increase is calculated is against the 24 budget. And so when you divide, and one number is zero, the result is always zero. So that's why then someone, I think, was a little confused about that, and that is exactly how that works. That's why you see a number of these with zero. Going on to Board of Assessment Appeals. Another example of that, tax collector. This is where you see the shift. She had part-time wages were 6,600 in 2024. The request was 6,700 in for fiscal year 25. And she had also said, hey, I need more hours, so she put in the assistant wages. And when all was said and done, and we worked through all the details and what the true needs really were, we just said, the heck with that, 18,000 for the assistant. Okay, it'll be the same person that's been being used for part-time wages. But it'll just be treated as an assistant position. And Linda, one of the things, if I recall, that you're also doing is you're doing succession planning, is that correct?
Well, I am trying to transfer held knowledge, because the day will come that I won't do it anymore. So I am sharing a lot of knowledge.
So what I'm hoping is that at some point in time, when you decide you don't want to work that many hours, and you feel that there's somebody else who can step up, that you'd switch. You would be part-time working with that person, and so the person could truly grow into the position. So
Yeah,
we don't want you going anywhere. We don't want you going anywhere, but we also know that you've got a life outside of here.
yeah, I do love my job with the town, and as long as all my pistons are operating at full function and I can continue to do it, I want to do it.
Yeah. Well, and you do a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's where we get to I'm going to the next slide.
So finance,
Oh, unless you have questions here. Okay, so the treasurer, here's where you see our treasurer. And goodness, difference of 169.09%. So, Sherry has been hired in at what we would consider to be the, what is the 2024 rate for a department head. So it's 68,000 and change, something like that. And so this will go up to the 70,525 is anticipated because of the 3% for 2025. 3% increase across the board. And then what we did was we had that position that was the financial administrator assistant wages, which was 50,000, and that's where part of the shift was to take that out of there. We're really working with an empty position in the selectmen's budget and an empty position in the finance budget. Questions? Okay. Next, town clerk. Take a look at that again. Town clerk's wages. The assistant town clerk wages, and I cannot remember off the top of my head what the 300 is for. I just can't remember. So then we have our assistant town clerk, and this is a union position. So as part of the union contract, everybody agreed to increase the assistant town clerk's hourly rate by $2 an hour. So that's why you see the 14.74, that made a quite a considerable jump.
So instead of getting the 3%.
No, she gets the 3% as well.
3% plus the $2.
Yeah, the way it starts is she gets the $2 an hour retroactive to July 1 of last year. And remember, the contract was signed in November, so it was retroactive to July 1. And then the 3% on top of that, and then the 3% on top of that for 2025. Okay, and then, registrar of voters, this is where you see some of their, additional expenses. They are a really well-run department. All of them. Going on, if no one has any questions. We have, the fire marshal, burning official wages, et cetera, et cetera. This only went up or down, $50. I have asked for regular reports from the fire marshal. We haven't had those in the past and should be getting them, and, I'm working on that. Highway public works staff. This is the one where it feels like things are buried because it's multiple people at multiple salary rates or salary levels. And one of the questions in the list of questions that we got had to do with breaking it out. And we did this the best way we could, because the different positions are kind of buried within the system. And it's pretty awkward when you go in to do any updates to them, if I understand correctly. Sherry and I spent tons of time on this, trying to kind of sort it out to the point of being able to explain it to you. So I think we have something in here that where a question was asked about how much of the increases were salary increases. And I don't know where it is in here, but it's in the,
Might be 28,
sorry,
might be question 28.
28, thank you.
I think that's it,
Yeah,
public works wages.
Yeah, and actually the answer was simple. The increase in that department, part of that increase is moving the custodian transfer station attendant position over to from the transfer station to DPW Public Works, plus salary increases for fiscal year 24 and 25. So that's why that number looks so big.
so explain to me again, though, I don't understand. So we had a transfer station attendant, and now that person is technically working for DPW?
And he can do work for the transfer station, but he is really split.
Okay,
So the decision was move him over into DPW.
okay.
We don't know that we will, and the selectmen will need to talk about this, but we don't know that we always need the attendant in the booth. At some point in time, we may adjust that a bit. There are other people working there too. And, he could be doing some other things, and Casey has used him for some other things. Is that good? No?
No, that's good, but we hired, the job description is maintainer 1/transfer station attendant, with the concept that, and of course, the transfer station is within the direction of the director of public works, also he oversees everything.
Yes.
But the concept was that we'd be able to utilize them both spots as needed. Primarily, we wanted to get that guard station up and try to get a handle on permits and that sort of stuff. But, so he's under the supervision of Casey. and works both spots. With certain assigned hours, but if there's a snowstorm, if there's an emergency with DPW, he also acts as a utility person in that position.
So we just felt it was cleaner, he felt it was cleaner to put him over in, DPW.
So is this a spot that,
Yes,
the 45,000 that was allocated last year, is that moved around to cover this person this year? That's on it.
tell me again, a little louder, please.
So last year,
What are you looking at, so I can look at it?
so last year is your Town of Ashford public hearing,
Okay,
and it says additional transfer station staff and increased in hauling fees of $45,000. So is this staff person?
The answer to your
person-
question is yes.
So that $45,000 was in the budget last year, is that gonna cover the person that you're looking at this year? Or,
It won't be
There
in
was
for
more?
next year, but the answer is yes.
okay,
There'll be a surplus left over that we didn't utilize in last year's payroll that will go into the general fund.
okay,
But the difference will pay his salary for whatever was remaining in last year, and then he'll be in the new year 25.
okay, so it's not additional into this year's budget,
Correct.
thank you.
thank you.
All right, highway, public works wages. Oh, that's where we were, sorry. Do we have any other questions about this? Okay, next. Highway public works equipment and materials. Not a big jump, but, the, signs and signals and. I can't see what the line is. Tree removal. Tree removal. Okay, moving to the next slide, DPW building. This one, contracted services, and I cannot recall what that is.
The cleaning service.
Oh, cleaning services, in the building. So, what we did was, we expanded our contracted services and, it's anticipated, it's a lot cleaner, a lot cleaner. And one of the, it sounds kind of cute, but, even cleaning the bathroom, they don't like cleaning the bathroom that they all use. They don't like having one person going out to do. Makes sense. And, so they're, better environment. Any questions about these or about the equipment that was mentioned before in one of the summaries? And I swear, David could make a jet engine out of a sewing machine. So we have,
Go ahead,
Catherine,
Paul.
can I ask a question?
Yep.
In under Highway Public Works, you have a custodian. The transfer station attendant is listed as a custodian as well. So we're also hiring a cleaning service. Is that an accurate statement?
the custodian was one of their workers. I'm trying to,
Well, no, we had
Yeah.
that maintainer / custodian position
Yep.
that was supposed to be doing routine maintenance around here.
maintenance, right,
Not.
It wasn't for cleaning bathrooms. The custodial position was
right.
to do minor maintenance around the town buildings, which is what our, yeah, it's our intent to still do that.
They still do
Okay.
that.
You-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was the cleaning service that we've been using in this building, the town office building. They're very satisfied with them. We also brought them into Noble Hall because we weren't satisfied with how things were going there, and we thought we'd get better utilization from our highway department, having those folks out on the highway repairing roads and that. And it's worked out very well in all three buildings now.
One of the things with Public Works having to do cleaning before they're pulled away so frequently, during snowstorms and whatever. It was hard to have them be able to be reliable to do it certain days of the week kind of thing. So the cleaning service has solved that problem. Plus they're experts at cleaning. So, and they're very good to work with.
Yeah.
So we're using them in a number of places. Okay. What are we under here? That's DPW.
Transfers.
So going on to the transfer station. And with this one, this one shows you, part of the movement of the, worker out of there. And, general impact. And while we're talking about that, I think I put a response to a question in the, in here about the, Casella. The rates going up for Casella, in terms of waste recycling, this, whatever, and hauling. And we feel that the amount we have estimated here, we have typically underspent in that area. And also we know Casella's rates are gonna go up, and we don't have all of the information yet, don't have an agreement to look at. The solid. And they also intend to have a discount for cardboard. They're gonna start that program for their other clients or whatever in May, supposedly. This is what the person told us. And, so we could get, quite a discount if we start separating out cardboard when we get our new, contract. So the new contract has to be in place for July 1st. I recall. And, so we feel that the amount that's estimated here that we've had before will suffice, even though we know that their rates for other things are gonna go up. And I don't remember if I told you how their rates are going to work. It feels like it's like a balloon mortgage, which is each month they will evaluate all of their clients around us and us and come up with a rate that's gonna change each month based upon the experience they have with all of their clients. It's not the way that we would have thought that it would go, but that's what was described to us. At which point we went, wait a minute. And then it was, well, there's also going to be a discount on cardboard, which is quite a bit of our bulk, to be quite candid. More than you would think. So, when that comes into place, then we're gonna have to make a change at the transfer station for collecting cardboard.
That maybe means like a separate compactor would that mean a separate compactor for the cardboard? Or how's that gonna, how are you going to
Collect it?
to collect it?
I don't know yet. That's something that we'll have to work out.
It's all a work in progress.
Yeah,
Because whatever it is, you'd want it to be dry. I would, make sure it stays dry.
right.
They've got new machinery down there. I haven't seen it yet. It'd be nice, maybe our board could get it.
We're gonna do a tour.
Well, single stream, where they actually do all of the separating right there on site. So we might be able to avoid that. I just don't know right now.
One thing they said is when they take the, I'm gonna say refuse to their facility, the old machinery they've got that separates things doesn't work very well, so they actually have to run stuff through like 2 or 3 times, and they have people hand picking stuff out. And they said that the new machinery is gonna be just take it through. Hope it works that way.
Could I ask
But
a
we're
question?
paying, I believe we will be paying for that machine.
Yes.
Catherine, is it normal for a waste collecting company to change their rates monthly?
It's new for us.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
How do you,
how
how do
can,
you create a budget?
that's what I was just
But I'm
gonna
fine.
ask.
Unfortunately, they have a lock on the market.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
we
know.
are, we are caught.
over a barrel.
And I've talked to some other selectmen about this, and they're not happy about it. There is actually someone, there's a selectman who's, their town is already experiencing this,
Okay.
so. But maybe their experience will change once they have all of the towns involved.
Mm.
But I mean, there have been things that we've kind of, I mean, we pay $246 every time they haul. And we found a situation where they were bringing in smaller dumpsters.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, I mean, that was a temporary
It
situation.
was temporary.
Yeah, because our old contract didn't specify the size of the dumpster.
Yeah,
Right.
And other towns, I understand, did.
yeah. You know, it's $246 every time that dumpster moves.
So we're back to bigger size.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. So moving on to the next slide, expense detail, for DPW building. The increase here is, contracted services and the, DPW equipment. Oh, wait, no, we already looked at that. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Transfer station, thank you.
Oh, I thought we
I
already,
thought we were done with transfer station.
we are, we're on agency
Agency.
services.
Agency services.
Oh, very good. Someone asked a question about the Sexual Assault Crisis Center. And that is in the list of questions. And, what we have, oh, here it is. We had, the line was under budgeted for fiscal year 24 at $500. This group, is a group of experts, crisis intervention services for sexual assault victims. And they provide immediate response to victims, including crisis intervention and accompaniment to hospital exams and procedures, police investigations, and court procedures. They also provide prevention and educational programs for children, parents, human service personnel, educators, healthcare providers, and the public. And what we had was we had 2 Ashford residents who were victims of sexual assault. And so it was when all was said and done, it was an approximate cost of $1,332 per client, and it represented an expense of $2,664 to be paid during 2024, fiscal year 24. And the same amount is estimated for fiscal year 25 under the circumstances. The other increases are generally as expected each year. Going to the next slide, agent for the elderly. This is, it just so happens that our agent for the elderly is the senior center director as well. So this is part of her work. Our Commission on Aging. This is what they have for a budget. Our sexton is, we will have someone asked a question about the signs and signals. And I think, Bill, you were involved in this because I talked with Jim. Those signs at our cemeteries are very rusted. They've been there for years and years, and they need to be replaced.
96 was the last time they were.
96?
John Hewlett.
Yeah. So,
We not only are they rusted, we've had several stolen. I don't know why people are so preoccupied with stealing cemeteries.
you never know. Planning and zoning. One area of increase there. We have the chair of planning and zoning here, but this is for plan of conservation and development. And that is $8,000.
Do we contract that out? Is it NECOG that does that?
We're not using NECOG, we're using Tyche.
We're using our current consultant group.
Okay. Okay,
We, yeah, I think it's a better option, and Tyche has done a number of these for other towns. So they actually have in general format and whatever. And, we found, Jeff, I believe you found the, whatever, the editable version of what we have so far, and so that can be brought in to their format.
And that's something that's required by the state that we complete every 10
And
years.
when does it due, Jeff?
And in 2025, or updated, as often as you like, but at least every 10 years.
Every 10 years.
Okay. Zoning Board of Appeals. No change there.
Oh, oops, I forgot to do that. Two things.
Inland wetlands. The, no change there. Conservation Commission. It's only $810 difference. And, building department. Building clerk, this was a change in hours, I believe. Change in something that brought that down a little. The, as far as the other professional and tech services. Let me think about what that is. That's contracted work, Tyke and Bolton. Yeah, and that was a question, I think, that was also in the list.
Yes.
And so that's been laid out too, as to what that is.
I don't know if it comes under this, but, because I was asking, Mike Diamato about the Zoom account, because
What account?
the Zoom account.
Uh-huh.
So, because he, apparently, what he said is that, like, the Zoom that we're running right now is actually under Type, like it's their account, they own it, and then they set up the meetings for us under that account. And that, he said that it had been discussed that perhaps the town would get its own. Is that in this budget? Was that
No,
discussed?
that's not in this budget, but there are some technical issues around that. If we have our own Zoom account, and let's just say, because I've had these conversations with him, and I have a technical background, but when they're doing it, well, let's put it this way. If we have a Zoom account and we have our chairs of our boards or whatever going in to set up their own meetings, that means you're sharing the password for the Zoom account for the town. And your chairs, et cetera, change over time. So there's a security issue around that. And, the account would have to be set up under our, at ashfordtownhall.org kind of thing. But the biggest thing is the security aspect of it. So, what they have done is these meetings, I'm trying to think of how we actually, when you go to set up an agenda and you are asking for a, meeting, Zoom meeting link to put in the agenda, do you reach out to Mike or do you reach out to Karen?
Mike,
Okay. So we'd have to, I think he said we had to create our own domain as well.
okay, I don't wanna go, we don't have to go down
I
that
once
road.
wrote this up, but.
I just
I'm
wanna,
no.
But
just wanted to know if it was in the
also-
budget or not.
Put the things, on the channels and the date, they handle.
Yeah, we can learn how to do that, but it becomes who's gonna do, make sure we know who's gonna do it.
Right.
Ideally would probably be your webmaster.
Okay. It's just, it's not in the budget, that's fine, I just wanted to figure that out.
Yeah.
We've also been covering that with ARPA funds, haven't we?
Yes, right now.
It's been being paid through ARPA funds right now.
Type is being paid through that, or just that portion of
It
it?
was,
Sure how to do it.
I, it's not all, of it, just the Zoom meeting.
So
So,
I can address a little bit with Zoom. It's one of my duties in my other town. So the town has its own account and I am the so-called holder of the account. It's under my name. So what happens is at the beginning of the year, on Zoom, you can set up a recurring link. So you don't have to ask for a link for every meeting. You set it at the beginning of the year, it's recurring, and you post that with your town clerk. So that covers you for your whole year. So it's the same link you use for every meeting. So that's something that you could set up in that system, it's done and goes. So the only time that you'd have to set up a new, meeting link is if you have a special.
Okay, so we'll explore that.
Yes,
That
you
sounds
can
good.
do that, and it's, you know.
And and when you have, executive sessions in your meeting, there's a thing where you need to stop recording.
Yes, that is
And
correct.
so you need some technical
That is correct.
skill to do that.
And usually, the person, our recording secretaries are pretty much staff members. So there are 4 of us that are trained. So when the executive session, you just go on mute and you turn it off and.
You're learning how to do that, right?
But those things can be addressed, but yeah, I mean, right now you have someone that does that for you, which does take a lot of that burden off. But going forward, this is something that can be looked at.
Very good, thank you. Okay,
She may have another hat to wear.
Just-
no, we're
Bring it
not
from-
doing, we are not doing that. We've been down that
From
road.
there to here.
Okay, Conservation Commission, just small increase, building department, is that what we got up there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
This one, what do we have? Oh, that was that same thing, we were already looking at, yeah, right? Moving on, Economic Development Committee. Small increase. Water pollution control, I don't, we have it on there, but I don't think we have anything for it.
I'm gonna ask the question, why do you have a budget for WPCA when you don't have?
We used because of the water problem that we had years ago.
I think by statute, because of some water issues up at Lake Chapin, we had to form a,
Okay, that makes sense. I'm like,
water authority.
okay, because I'm like, we don't have any city
And we're
water,
still
we don't
under
have any city sewers.
needs.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that with me. Thank you.
Then employee benefits. Showing the overall increase. And while the 29.5% was applied, we're also talking about changes that occurred in terms of adding on a new employee and changing the status of another family.
Life changes.
General liability, yep, numbers are still low. General obligation bonds. So with this one, we're anticipating less interest. Got that right? And then moving on to contingency, here's where what we decided to do was leave 15,000 in there for emergency purposes. Where before we used to have, what we anticipated, could cover, salary increases. The other ones, volunteer fire and ambulance. I got information from Paul, like I said, that was excellent. It's in the responses to questions that were posed about the fire department and what they were looking for, what they are looking for. And, a much better description than I could do. So, that's in there. I reformatted a little, just make it a little easier to read. And this is where it said, where I said slide 5 was oversimplified. The requested increase includes funding to bring the fire department to 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, paid staff coverage, which is an addition of 12 man hours, not to simply add 2 paid staff. So I want to make sure that that's very clear because that is the goal that they have.
Kathy, I think it's touching that, just,
Sure.
I think everybody's probably aware of it, but we've had a strategy over the past several years, even a little more than that, to bring the coverage there up to paid staff with 24-hour emergency, EMS coverage. And last year, I think we added 6 hours. This year, we're looking to do it to bring it up to 24. And I mean, my personal feeling on it, and I believe my comrades on the board feel the same. As public officials, our number one obligation to our residents is public safety. And the fire department is our biggest resource, our only actual resource. We have no police department or whatever else here. We rely on them for not only fire, but emergency management services. One of the things that we realized and why we developed this strategy a number of years ago is that because of a lack of volunteers, we had to supplement with full-time paid staff to cover ambulance services. And the downside of where we were several years ago was we were missing calls. And there's two rationales to missing calls. One is a practical sense. You don't realize the real importance of those services until that ambulance is pulling up your driveway. It becomes a life and safety issue on many occasions, not all of them, but on many occasions. The other is the financial aspect of it. Most of a good piece of the revenue that comes in from charging for our ambulance services goes into a fund to buy a new ambulance. Well, from a financial state, there's a considerable dollar amount for every ambulance call that we miss. I'm not sure what the dollar amount, it doesn't ring a bell with me right this minute, but it's considerable. So you have a safety issue, security issue in missing those calls, but you also have a financial consequence. And that's why I know I fully support, and I believe the board supports going to a 24 paid staff so we can meet the obligation that we have to deliver the safety and life concerning issues regarding our residents.
We're absolutely in agreement on that. So I recall as part of the presentation that was done with the board, but that, Paul mentioned that there were a number of missed calls last year and some missed calls this year. And I can't imagine being on the waiting end, you know, and that's only because of staffing.
A missed call, represents, instead of waiting 10 minutes for an ambulance to pull up your driveway or 12 minutes, double that time. Because we're going on mutual aid, bringing in an ambulance from Mansfield or Eastford or wherever it may be. And it's problematic, very problematic.
How many volunteers are there at the department?
I think there's another,
Maybe people in the survey know.
it's in the write-up that's in here.
Oh, is
When
there?
I was on the service for 10 years, back in the early 90s now, we easily
Question
had
6.
35 to 40 active members. I understand it's just a small percentage of that now.
I think we have some people from the department here, so maybe you could give us that answer.
We're currently running 15 active volunteers.
15 active volunteers for people, whatnot, yeah.
And our town is not the only one that's suffering from that. The last time I knew, town of Chaplin was down to 3 or 4 active members. Eastford is having problems getting their folks certified because they just don't have the volunteers to come out with the numbers to do it.
And
There was a structure fire last year with a home where in Eastford, we were on mutual aid. They could not actually go into the dwelling to see if anybody was in the home yet because none of their staff were certified with the air packs. They had to wait for us to get on the scene.
I see you, Judy, 1 second. Does going to a 24-hour, 365 paid staff coverage position us? Or does it position the department to potentially provide services to other towns, to contract to other towns?
We're on mutual aid with other towns. I don't think we contract with them, but we're on mutual aid anyway, right now, with other towns.
But in the past, I believe we did contract with Eastford.
Well, that was for ambulance, not,
Okay. Oh, for ambulance.
yes. That was for medical.
in the
The
sense,
towns are required to provide some form
yeah,
of medical.
in a sense, the actual reaching out to contract with other towns is really within the fire department's purview. not necessarily something that we're looking at. That's
Mhm.
what they do, and that's up to them.
We used to contract with Eastford,
Just for ambulance, we always
Just
just
for
mutual aid
Yeah.
for fires, but
And just to add to this, a few weeks ago, I was watching the 11 o'clock news, and what do I see with the fire chief in Summers? Basically on his hands and knees in front of the Board of Selectmen saying, we don't have the staff, we're missing calls. We've got all kinds of issues because of it, we can't get volunteers.
they just.
So
have to
this
pay
is-
fire to-
And it's not just a Connecticut problem, it's a national problem. Not being able to get volunteers.
Judy, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, so you have 15 active volunteers, how many paid volunteers, or is that,
They're not paid.
Volunteers.
How
are
many
not
paid?
at all.
how many paid personnel?
That's in the right.
Currently there are, I'm just scrolling, so bear with me for a moment. I've got too many files open. So at the moment, there's 4 full-time firefighter EMTs, and those are then supplemented by 7 to 10 per diem personnel that are part. And that number is a variable because it all depends on shifts and
You'll also, I think you'll also find the information in the response to question 6. That was both those.
Judy, did you get those, the question and answers?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I think if you read through those, you'll see all the details.
yeah, the other thing, I was curious as to, when you're saying missed calls, I mean, as people get elderly, they have more calls in a certain time of day, which is most of the time nighttime or early morning. Do you guys like schedule that for?
the current paid staff coverage begins at midnight and carries until 6 p.m. And then the volunteer hours carry from 6 p.m. until midnight. And to your point, the calls that are not able to be staffed currently are in the volunteer hours. So the only calls that are being missed currently are in the non-paid staff hours, that 6 p.m. until midnight timeframe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, recreation fund. So there was a question about this. And there is a breakdown of the recreation fund that we'll get to afterwards. It's further on down in the budget slides. Yeah, it was explain the increase in the recreation fund. It's question number 32. So, and it says, go to slide 36. You don't need to do that now. To look for the breakdown. So in summary, 11,888 of the increase is rec director wages and benefits. 3,450 is rentals, mowing, and contracted services, and 2,000 is for grant funded programs. Babcock Library, if I recall, their increase is related to salaries. And Animal Control Fund, this is one where there is another write-up in the question document. And let me just check where that is. I think you saw it. It's question number 33. So it's a little bit complicated, but last fiscal year or whatever, last budget, the Board of Finance asked us to cut the budget. And one of the places where something got cut was that $5,000 was cut from the salary line from the animal control officer, and funds from the animal control fund were used to supplement that. So what is this, when it says explain the large increase for animal control officer, is this solely a wage increase? Is this a vendor or a town position? So the animal control officer position is statutorily required. So is the animal control fund. So you can't not have it. And so I broke out how the, what happened and how we arrived at the total. So you may want to read through that. I don't know if you want me to go through it. I will probably start spinning, my head will start spinning around.
Yeah, I think.
It was,
I think we
not
can
an
do it.
easy thing to figure out. Thank God Chris was available to give me a clue. And then I kind of forgot what you said, because my brain is full, and went back and was doing the math and figured out what the math was. Okay. Now, let's see. And we need to replenish that fund? What would we do?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to replenish the animal control fund?
Gets replenished every year with what's left over in the animal control budget.
Okay, good.
It does get replenished. The money that is in that fund is statutorily designated to salary and maintenance. So 3 times we took $5,000 from salary for three different budgets. When we never do a decrease.
We're gonna try not to do that.
No.
Thank you. And then you see. Which one?
Use some social services.
Services,
Here's services, oh, yeah,
still
Thank you.
over here.
oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, I can't wait to your. Okay, so youth and social services program. And, this one, I don't know if there was a question about this. One of the things we did do is we brought the social service, youth and social services director up to, department head level. We did that last year. And so that's part of what you see, for the increase plus, the normal increases. So, and she does do a fine job. She works 2 days a week here and 3 days a week for school. So, she's split between the two of us. The other financing transfers, we have nothing going on, unexpended education funds. I'm not even sure why that's there. Because it's a revenue.
No, what
No, it's not a
happened,
revenue.
the only reason it shows up here is because during the year, when the Board of Ed asks for their money to be transferred to the non-lapsing, this is the bookkeeping thing, I have to show it here. So it's just a line that shows up in this report, doesn't have anything to do with the budget. At the moment.
So that's how we got to our general governmental totals and the 12.79. Are there any items in the question and response document that you'd like to discuss before we move on to the capital improvement projects? I would like to point out on the new fire truck on number 3. While 575,000 is the firm purchase price, all of our fire truck purchases are financed as lease purchases. We don't know what the bank's interest terms will be, and funds to repay those loans are planned for and either taken to CNR or from the undesignated balance. And what you'll see, we'll go over it when we get into the capital improvement plan. But we, spread out, it'll certainly spread out the 575 temporarily. And the point is that if I understand correctly, this fire truck would be delivered in 2 years from the time we order it. And that a full payment, of course, is due at that time, and because we financed it, we would be having the full payment, but then we would be, paying the, bank. And, work that out. So I anticipate, we don't know what the interest rate will be.
So I don't have any other questions. I feel like things were answered very completely in this document for myself, plus all the detail that we got through the course of this conversation. So for me, I don't have any other additional questions, but I'll open it up to the other board members if they have any additional questions specific to the general government budget. We'll get to the capital improvement piece next. It's a lot to digest, of course, as everybody knows.
Understood.
Do we want to like stretch our legs for a minute, go to the bathroom, or do we plow through onto capital improvement? What do
Up to you guys.
what do you think? You're good? All right, let's just hunker down and get it done.
Let
Okay.
me know if I'm going too slowly or too detailed, and I'll pick the.
Well, I think we can maybe go a little bit quicker on capital improvement,
I
but,
think we can.
but I think you've covered it appropriately.
Okay. Now for more of the capital improvement projects, what you'll see is a list of projects that was, I want to thank the capital improvement committee for having, worked diligently and questioned everything as we went through looking at, potential capital improvement projects and purchases. What you'll see, going into the, which one do you have?
Yeah, where should I be?
Oh, I'm sorry,
looking
it's a
here?
different document.
Is
It's this thing.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Where'd it go?
Yeah, I think how
I treated it as a separate thing because it's actually a portrait.
no, I know, but I may not have,
I sent it to you, let's see. Give me a second. It was sent with the original.
Dated March 1st.
oh, I'm sure I have it, I just need to get it
You
to
actually
this
got it, you
computer.
actually got it March 2nd.
I just need to get it to
That's
the
Saturday.
correct computer. Mm. Oh, right, it's the part 1 and part 2, and you know what, we have it on the website, hold on.
What I didn't put on these was draft.
Documents, documents. We're gonna look at part 1. Okay, I've got it now. So here's our capital improvement plan, and here's the big.
So the highlighted column is for the ones that are for this fiscal year, 2024. The next column is what is proposed for our next fiscal year. So, again, I want to thank the Capital Improvement Committee. I think you did a very, very nice job going through everything. And, you're an advisory committee. The Capital Improvement Committee is an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen. And so we went through, and, I will tell you that under town projects, what we did was we took off the, resurfacing of the tenant of the basketball courts, because that is going to be proposed for ARPA funding. And originally, we had determined that the new website would also be ARPA funding. We have an additional thing that came up with the senior center that will fixing their countertop out in the foyer. That is also being considered for ARPA funding. And we're going to have a special town meeting on March 9th. 19th at 6:30 before the Board of Selectmen meeting to look at where we are with ARPA. Chris has done a really nice job of going through the ARPA projects and purchases and determining which ones have been completed and if there are any monies left over that can be applied elsewhere. So we have, those things are going to be there on the agenda for that special town meeting. So my hope is that the website and et cetera will be approved, which means that the people who are our team, Sherry Much, Karen Zulik, and Mike D'Amato, who have researched the website and all of that we've had an RFP, the selectmen have selected the vendor, and that they can start work, whatever it is, on getting that website going. It's gonna take 3 to 6 months to put it up, so the sooner the better. So anyway, it got taken off of here, the resurfacing did, so this brought this down a bit. And so going through this, for those of you who haven't seen it before, and I know that Paul and Christina, and I can't remember if anybody else here is on the capital improvement committee. I don't think so. So, sorry?
Chuck Long.
Oh, Chuck Funk, yes, absolutely. So those individuals have been pretty vital to the committee, that committee. So they're pretty familiar with all of this. So I want to clarify something about that Kubota L47 tractor, and I actually clarified it in the response to the questions for the capital project. Where is this here? Is it in here? Oh, it's number 1. This is about the, one question that had come up was, is there financing for buying that tractor? So, I contacted contractor, and yes, they offer financing. However, this purchase should be expensed as a one-time payment. I know, because I thought she was gonna club me to death when I even mentioned financing. This is akin to purchasing a school bus or a van, which are never financed. Okay, and when you think about the cost, I can't imagine financing something at that cost. So I did check, and so we do have an answer to that. The other thing I want to let you know is, and I think it was someplace else, is that Public Works or DPW, when they're talking about this tractor, they're talking about the fact that the school's tractor that they use, they can't do bush hogging with. Someone asked a question about the mowing that's done. And, why why does Public Works need a tractor when, why is there a mowing fee under, Parks and Rec? When, and why are they asking for a tractor? Why isn't it under DPW? And the reality is that the mowing that is done for Parks and Rec is really maintenance of the ball fields and some of the mowing around there. The work that the Public Works does is they go out and they twice a year mow down the tall grasses and things like that, and they bush hog wherever they need to bush hog. They're not doing that other kind of maintenance. That's contracted. And we had a contract that Public Works had, not Public Works. Yeah, thank you. APRC had to do that, and we actually had an increase, and we anticipated that because we had to put an ad in the Ashford Citizen. Well, we put an ad in there for cemetery mowing, but we probably need to re-examine the contract we have for mowing elsewhere. So anyway, so one of the reasons that this Kubota tractor is something that the Department of War wants is because you can put things on it. You can put a bush hog, yeah, you can put all kinds of things on it, and it's a bigger item. It covers more space. And even when they try to use the small tractor that the school has, they can't load it with much. They can't take enough of the stuff they need to work with. So you're talking about repeat trips, and you're also talking about some contention in terms of use of it. Because you can only use it for a certain amount of time because it's being shared with the school. But the reality is what that department wants the tractor for is not just maintenance of ball fields and that kind of thing. So you could put a snowplow on this thing, you could put all kinds of things on it. So, I just wanted to clarify that because I don't think that really came across during our, capital projects meetings. You know, I think that it wasn't understood what the difference really was between the tractor the school has and what they're really looking for. So,
We're actually borrowing the school's tractor and
right.
because of the seasonal thing. We both need it mostly at the same time, so it's, and the new Kubota that's being proposed here is a much more advanced, a larger unit. Will also be able to give us the capabilities. We've been running a bit short of staff over the highway garage. That in the future years, we may be able to eliminate one or two of the contractors right now that we have to involve fields in that. And that would give us the ability to at least have the equipment to do.
So one of the things that the, departments or whatever, did as part of this capital projects review and decision-making was, they put their, public works, fire department, Ashford School and town projects, put them into priority sequence. So when you see, road resurfacing, dump truck lease, wheel excavator lease over 5 years, we have, 2 more years to go. Those are non-negotiable. Those are already things that are basically, I'm gonna say, in flight. So the new items are the, for public works, are the 2024 F-350 crew cab pickup, the Kubota L47 tractor, and then reval definitely is non-negotiable, or a must-have. The fire department, the lease, fire truck lease over the 5 years for the ET 220, that is also non-negotiable. The fire truck replaced the ET 420. That's the one that's $575,000. And I commend Paul Varga for his, negotiating with the company New England Fire Equipment and Apparatus Corporation to bring the cost down from an estimate of $600,000 to $575,000. Again, that one, we're going to have to make sure we understand what the interest is going to be on that. The fire, one of the things that the Capital Projects Committee did not see or did not know at the time, we got an estimate afterwards, was the Ashford Fire, the ABFD Station 20 roof repair. We got an estimate of 97,902.88 from McClintock Roofing for the replacement of that roof. When the Capital Projects Committee had completed their review, we thought it was going to be around 50,000. So it's been changed here to 100,000. The Ashford School, the air conditioning replacements, the air exchangers, the bollard installation. Bollards are to block cars from being able to come into where the school is, right? At the entrance, I can't remember exactly where it is. Those 3 things are, the school was going to go back to the Cindy Ford from the school was going to go back to the Board of Ed to ask, can those monies be taken from the unexpended education fund, affectionately called the 1% fund? Sorry?
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that has happened, but that's gotten that approval
I'm pretty
yet.
sure it's on the agenda.
Okay.
They might be meeting tonight and doing it.
All right, so those have to be posed and approved, posed to the Board of Ed and approved by them to use those monies for that. And then ultimately, they would come to your board to say, hey, we wanna use monies from that fund to purchase these things, because that's the protocol for using money from that fund. The $4 million is just the $4 million that is part of the $5 million for the school roof. So town projects, Cable Rock property remediate, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have anything on that at this point. Senior center door replacement, I think we took the, yeah, I don't know if we took the middle of the bid. $70,035. So if you look at the next page, you will see where, suggested funding. So you'll see the 500,701 from CNR, LoSiP, and Town Aid Road, they're used to supplement, road resurfacing. If I got it right. Yes. And then, you can see AS non-lapsing for, and, for the, what the school has. And then you see the school building bonding.
Jeff Silversmith.
Well, hello.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Went off in my
Does
ear.
that mean he texted you?
I hope everything, I hope our horses aren't out again.
So just to point out, for the Board of Finance members, if you look on the question and answer piece, I asked about this. So if we transferred the 500,701
Question 4.
right to capital non-recurring from the unassigned fund balance, what percentage does that leave us with? And so those answers are there. So that should help us make those decisions about how much we want to move
And
from the
thank,
unassigned fund balance.
and thank you, Sherry, for pulling that together for us. I looked at that and went,
Advanced math.
where do we start?
Well, and it's helpful to have it laid out, because I feel like in the past, it's always been like, oh, so now we know.
Yep.
And,
Nice to know ahead of time.
yes,
Mhm.
and just as a reminder, and this came up in the, audit presentation, that our goal as a town is to have that, percentage be between 10 and 15% of the unassigned fund balance to total expenditures. Am I saying that right? But then we did hear that the Connecticut GFOA,
Yes,
they are recommending 16%.
yes.
So
And they're just an association.
they're just
Yeah, they're
non-binding,
Auditors.
non-binding association.
They're just an association.
Okay, so that's the capital improvement plan, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so any questions about this? I think it's important to note that the capital improvement plan, as it's structured and laid out here, would have no impact on the mill rate, because it's either being, these projects or acquisitions are being funded either through state funding, bonding that's already been authorized, and this transfer from the unassigned fund balance.
We have one more piece of this. It was the second thing, and you have the hard copies. The last piece is that Sherry went to check, you looked in the system, whatever, and showed, pulled up things that have been authorized in the past, you know, or that, projects, things that are in progress and some things that are finished. And also, basically what leftover monies there are, so that you have a sense of it as well. What I would recommend, or I do recommend, is that just like during the audit process, you move monies or you do adjustments, that as part of that process going forward, I mean, the things you do for the audit to kind of close out things,
Close the projects.
close the projects, because that will free up the monies that are left over. until that's done, you really can't touch them. Right?
That's correct. That's why they're considered still committed, because
Right.
if you have a project that came in under budget and you have, $5,000 left, it's still committed to that project until you do your
So you
housekeeping
release
to
it.
release it back into your CNR.
So
So
here's
is
a
that
good example,
like-
oil tank,
Had two major ones this past year,
oil tank replacement.
oil tank replacement, that was like 100,000. I
It is
haven't
a-
seen this.
Yeah, it's on the, other one, it should be.
And then the other one was we appropriated, you had appropriated under CNR last year, for the replacement of the generator, and we got most of that,
Back from
back from the insurance company. So those are funds that were dedicated from CNR last year that were not utilized.
So do we need to put on a Board of Finance meeting agenda, taking a look at these projects and closing, we'll need to vote to close certain projects?
What I suggest is that we meet, the three of us.
Sure.
Maybe even with Chris, because she has knowledge about a number of these as well, and kind of make sure that it's laid out clearly for you before you put it on your agenda.
Now, what is the timing that has to happen with that? Does it have to happen before the budget or can it?
It
wait?
can happen anytime,
Anytime.
So,
anytime.
so we could put it
Just
on
have something.
an agenda for June.
You could, yes, yes.
It should be.
It's not hurting anything at the moment, it's just still sitting as committed where, future wise, you could use it for something else.
Yeah, and I think the point is to know how much monies do you really have available in that fund? And to make sure that it's kept, that projects are closed out so that you always have a good idea of what's available.
And I know over the years, particularly the committee, particularly if Chuck is still on, they like to leave some money in that fund because we have a habit of it depleting considerably over the years.
Right.
Still there.
And we'd like to maintain a balance or look forward to leaving a sizable balance in there.
Well, and it's, it protects it protects the monies in the event. The more you have in your CNR fund, the more protected it is, should somebody want to sue the town. Because they're considered committed funds.
So do any board members have questions specific to the capital improvement plan budget as proposed? Okay. Is there anything else with that plan that you want to review?
No, I showed where I just, I want to make sure you saw that page.
Mhm.
If that's okay.
Okay, so I think.
Let me know if you have any more questions, just send them to us. And the corrected.
We have a question on the,
Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
Sorry, hi Chuck.
You have to unmute, there you go. Go ahead.
I just want, before I sign off, I just wanted to say as a town member, I'm very proud to have watched you guys work this evening. I am very impressed with how everybody worked together to hear this presentation. I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing. And I just want to thank you all of you, everyone in that room, for everything you've done to try to move things forward. And I just felt it was important for you guys who probably most people don't have any clue how much effort you put in. But I really thank you all.
And if I could make a comment as well. Having these questions ahead of time, even though it was quite the task to come up with the answer, or to understand the questions, come up with the answers. How well organized that is. That makes it so that we're able to come prepared. To, and you've got the answers documented to work with. And I just think that's a great way to operate.
Well, that was an innovation from last year that we
Very good.
carried over to this year. Good. Thank you, Chuck, by the way. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action on the recreation fund's negative fund balance of $16,801. So this was something, thank you. This is something that came up, there is a selectmen's update, if you want to
I'd
do
like
it.
to waive it tonight.
That's fine. That's fine. So anyway, so item C, so this came up, as part of the audit. It's actually on page 33. And so basically my understanding is, there was an I don't know if I'm saying it right, overspending in recreation. We had about a 7,000 balance coming into fiscal year 23, and then an additional 9,000 accrued over the course of fiscal year 23, which leaves us with the 16,801. I think we should have addressed the 7,000 last year. It didn't, that's fine. But I feel like we need to address it now, so, because it's pretty soon it's gonna get to 20, and that's like a capital improvement project, and so we kind of need to address it. So am I correct, Sherry, that what we as a board need to do is authorize transferring $16,801 from the unassigned fund balance to the recreation fund?
That is correct.
Okay, so could someone make a motion to that effect?
So, I
Go
have
ahead.
a question.
Well, technically, we should make a motion and then
Yeah,
discuss.
motion.
Okay, thank you. Judy made the motion. We need a second very quickly.
Second.
Keith made the second. Okay, thank you. Now discuss.
So, it seems roughly about the same amount of money that we keep on overspending. Are we under budgeting?
Sorry, just the water on myself. So correct me if I'm wrong, but when I looked at the numbers, we are actually, the recreation department had actually brought in more than anticipated revenue? No, under brought in revenue and overspent. That's what happened. So we need to do a better job moving forward.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So that
2
it
years
doesn't
in a row,
happen again.
And it keeps being approximately.
Right. And is the idea that this activity fund might help address this issue?
No,
No.
it, I kind of don't feel it's proper for me to speak when you have a motion or whatever, so you let me know if it's okay for me to speak to this.
I think it's fine.
Okay. That we are looking at that problem. Okay, I've talked with the selectmen, and I have talked with the rec director. Personally, I think that the rec director should bring in revenue is at least as much as her salary. And we're looking at how the accounting is working and the monitoring. And I'm also working with the chair of that, the rec commission. So this has been an issue for a number of years. That's why the rec fund got depleted to begin with, because it was kind of a chronic thing. And so now we're looking at it, and I'm glad that you're focused on it as well. Because it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed with some guardrails or procedures or something. So I just want you to know that this came up like 6 weeks ago, when the budget requests were submitted, and I was looking at it and it didn't match. So there's some work that needs to be done there.
Very good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I'd like to see a breakdown of the programs of what they're doing.
I can send you that.
Okay, because one of my concerns, depending on who their clientele is, I don't know if they're like charging for participation, are they charging for participation in some of these activities? And whether or not maybe because their clientele may not be able to afford
Like a reevaluation of them. The other thing is, in talking with both the director and with the chair of the commission together, the discussion was need to come up with some you need to look at your pricing. And you need to come up with more programs that are bringing in more revenue. And so, what's been suggested is to look around, because certainly you have programs in Sterling, there's some other programs out there that sound, for example, that breakfast thing or whatever it was, great idea. And I think that the rec commission itself has had conversations about that. I think our programs have gotten stale. And, it's time to do a reassessment.
I would just like to say, my kids in particular have taken advantage of a lot of the recreation programs. My kids both learned how to ride a bicycle, thanks to the recreation department. My
That's a
daughter
great one.
taken gymnastics at the school, which is after COVID became very much in demand. So there are a lot of great programs. But there probably is an opportunity to look at what those fees are. And I know some programs are free, some are paid, and looking at that as an opportunity. With that being
Christina?
said, yes, go ahead, Paul.
Can I ask a question and maybe just a clarification? I'm not sure who can clarify it. Maybe Sherry, what's the difference between the rec department budget and the recreation fund?
Nothing. One and the
So-
same.
So normally, at the end of the fiscal
Oh.
year,
I know what he's talking about. Hold on.
He's,
Go ahead.
he's,
Go ahead.
do you understand what I'm asking?
I think so. Continue on.
Okay, so normally at the end of the fiscal year, if there's a line item that's not like that overspent, or a department overspent, we normally authorize like moving line item funds between departments or interdepartment. Why is this different?
Okay, so year-end transfers typically happen in the general fund. So you're doing transfers between the budget with the Board of Selectmen's budget.
Right,
When it comes to recreation has its own budget, has its own fund, like the youth services has its own fund. K9, the dog has its own fund, and capital has its own fund. So at the end of your budget, the Board of Selectmen budget, there's those 5 items, which is Babcock Library, the fire department, youth services, rec, and there's one other.
and you'll,
Dog fund.
and you'll see them at the end of the presentation.
Yes.
so essentially, those are treated as separate entities, not necessarily general fund. Is
That's
that
correct. They
okay.
have their own fund balance. What happens is those numbers are made up of, that number is made up. So if the school asks for not the school, I'm sorry, the rec asks for $150,000, they're gonna bring in $50,000 in revenue. The general government budget supports or subsidizes that
Okay.
program. So she is required to bring in that 50,000, because, she's got a budget of 150, but if she goes over, there's supposed to be extra monies in that fund to cover, and what's happened over the years, that budget has spent more money than what's in that fund.
And actually, last year's goal for her was 35,000?
Yes.
35,000 in revenue. And that's too low a goal.
Yeah, so what's happened is that fund has depleted. It can happen the same thing with animal control. We keep cutting that budget. That fund is subsidizing that budget of, the salary for somebody. So, you gotta watch those lines where you've got to subsidize. And that may be something as a housekeeping thing that you do, if, it comes to that one year, it should have been dealt with the year before. Typically, it's, it can come from undesignated,
So we do that reconcile,
question.
you can't reconcile if it's a private, you can't reconcile if it's its own funding program. You could if it was in the system as a normal general government.
That's correct. That's correct.
So how close to goal was the rec department? You said 35,000 to income?
She basically met goal, she
Oh, okay. But you
met
meant
goal, but the goal was too low.
Okay, all right.
So could we vote on this motion at this point? Okay, all in, and again, this is, we are voting on, moving $16,801 from the unassigned fund balance to the recreation fund.
That
All
will
the-
zero, that will zero that out, right? Correct?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to cover our deficit.
And if I could make a suggestion, when that motion gets documented, put the fund ID, the numbers, the account numbers. That's what we used to do when we were moving monies from one place to another.
Okay, is there one?
Not really, not
Not
for
for
your
this
fund, not for your.
Not for
fund.
this one?
No,
Sorry.
No.
Never
Yeah,
mind.
just-
Okay,
Yeah, we're.
so Judy made the motion, Keith seconded it. All in favor, please say aye.
I,
Holly, you get a vote, so you can say aye if you want.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Okay, great.
Can I just
All
make
right.
a comment?
Yeah.
It sounds like the Board of Selectmen is, for lack of a better term, chasing this down and keeping an eye on it, but this is the second year in a row that we've had an over budget in that department. I think that maybe that's something the Board of Finance needs to keep an eye on as well.
We'll keep you apprised.
Thank you.
And, you know, we say the second year in a row, but the reality is that this was going on before. And so it's
Well,
a,
that's even worse.
yeah, I know, and that's why we're looking at it.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda is just to review the budget calendar. I'd just like to talk it through with everybody and make sure our next steps make sense to everyone. And I'm gonna share my screen momentarily. Here it is. Oh, so we are on Thursday, March 7th, general government budget presented along with the capital improvement plan. So yay, we got that done. Next week, we're scheduled to review the budget requests. And then also the proposed Region 19 budget request. And also, I'm not really sure what BOS recommendations is referring to.
That's, you know, historically, that's been on there, and I will give you my personal opinion. I've certainly had a couple of people say they don't agree with that. The board of, the Ashford School does not make recommendations about the Board of Selectmen general government budget. I don't think that it's appropriate for the Board of Selectmen to make recommendations about the school budget, and that's what used to happen. Okay, and so that's why that was on there. And so, some people, a couple of individuals who used to, you know, that they know that that's how it was done before, it's kind of hard to give that up. But I really don't think it's appropriate for the Board of Selectmen to tell you that they recommend, say, cutting the Board of Ed budget. I just don't, and that was what used to happen.
Okay. So my thinking is, and please pipe up if you think this makes sense, that, so at the next meeting, I think we as a Board of Finance really need to grapple with now the budgets as they've been presented.
Do you want to see any departments? Let me know.
Well, no, well, that's the thing. So if we, as a board, next week, meet, review the budgets, and then at that point, ask for additional clarifications. Then we could have people back potentially on the 21st if we need additional.
Actually, the intention of budget requests requiring additional clarifications was that you would let the selectmen know what departments you would like to see at that meeting. Okay, so if you find that you want more detail, that's where the department would come in, the department head.
But could we have them come in on the 21st? What I'm wondering.
Talking the week after, so.
I know
There
what
would be
you're talking the
enough
week
time.
after,
Yeah.
but this is what that meant. Was that you would decide at this meeting if you wanted to talk to any other departments, and then we would make sure that those departments represent.
Right, but I personally don't feel like I can make that decision this evening with all the information I've been presented with. So I would like to, would it be a problem if we, if we really grapple as a board with the budgets, ask the questions, then we can have town departments, if we need them, come in on the 21st. And then we could also, the Board of Ed could come in on the 28th if we need them to come back. For their schedule, March 28th works for them. And then we would either approve the budgets on March 28th, or we have this Tuesday, April 2nd date as a backup if we can't get it done on the 28th. Does that schedule make sense?
I like the idea, Christina, of having the board meet next week and talk about all this stuff, including the Board of Ed budget. And then if we need clarification, giving that information to the Board of Selectmen so they can ask those departments to come in the following week. That gives us, as you said, some time to look at this and then some time to talk about it. Because we may be able to answer questions amongst ourselves without having to bring anybody in.
Right, and I do think the questions and answers are quite thorough.
Right,
So
but, and there's a
we
lot
haven't
of
had time to
information.
digest it because we got it today. But that may, I might not need to see DBW now, because once I read this, I go, okay, now it all makes sense. So tentatively next week, Thursday, March 14th, we meet as a board, and we're really just gonna dig into these budgets and ask questions and have conversations about what is the mill rate implications and all that kind of stuff. And then go back to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed at that point with additional questions, or we need to see this, we need to see that kind of thing. All right, does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So I think that covers that, and then Selectmen's update, we said we're gonna pass on that.
I will pass on
So that's
that.
fine with me. Agenda items for the next meeting, we just discussed, and then I put down a note for myself on the capital project closeout, add to the agenda for June, so I'll try to put that in a note for myself.
Just another, I'm sorry, Christina.
Yeah.
I had, a request from the BOE is gonna be asking for their 1% of their unexpended,
Their
Budget.
transfer.
their transfer to their non-lapsing. So, that's gonna be 84,215, I think it
Which
is.
is what you have in the right.
Which I had in one of your questions,
Yeah.
what the what the, percentage would be.
84,215.
Yeah,
So we want that on the next agenda.
yes,
Okay.
because that's another housekeeping you usually,
And what they normally do is they document that in the letter to the board.
I have it in an email.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I do. So I will forward that on to, Christina.
Okay. Remarks for the good of the board. Before I give a little pep talk and a thank you, I'll just mention that according to my math, based on the budgets as proposed for general government, Ashford School and Region 19, and the grants and fees and other income that were presented this evening, there might be, I think, what did we say, 15 volunteers? Does that mean the fire department abatements is 15,000 instead of 14, could be. That might be a slight difference, but anyway, what we're looking at with the proposed budgets, according to my math, is a 2.065 mil increase. And what that would mean for someone who has the median assessed value of a home in Ashford, which is about 167,000, according to our assessor. That would mean an increase of $370 in their annual property taxes. So that's if we accept everything as presented, that's the financial ramifications. So keep that in mind over the next week. Think about that. 2.065 mils, about $370 in additional tax dollars for the average homeowner. So I would just say, like I said, think about that over the next week, talk to people about it and see what kind of reaction you get, so we can bring that to the next meeting. Yes.
What is the current mill rate for 1 mil? Is it 359?
So you want to know what 1 mil is equal
Equal
to?
to?
Yeah,
It's about 370,000.
I was gonna say 360, yeah, that's what it was.
You
So
just take the grand list
360.
and knock off 3 zeros, right? That's
Yeah.
the fancy math way of doing it. So 1 mil is equal to about 370.
you go to 98%.
I'm going off the net taxable.
Okay.
It's
It's
So
pretty
just
close.
looking at
Yeah.
the-
It's pretty close to that.
between 360 and 370, let's say that.
Yeah.
So if we have the town was at 400 and something, right? And then we have the school.
So the increases in dollar amounts as requested, general government, the increase is 491,000.
Yeah.
The requested increase for Ashford School is 258,000,
Mhm.
and then the Region 19 request is 140.
Which you'll find with the Region 19 request, in all likelihood, it will go down.
Yeah, because that's their first go round, but they.
Yeah, that was for definitely first go round.
They're for there.
So the total requested increase is 889,240. Okay, so hopefully that gives everybody an idea of the big picture. And I'll just say thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here this evening, put in the work. I know it's a tremendous amount of effort that went behind these documents. And I know for the volunteers on the board, you guys put a lot of time in reviewing these documents. It shows in the type of questions you're asking, and in the way I think you've asked questions this evening. So thank you for that. It doesn't go unnoticed and it is appreciated. And thank you to the folks who sat in the meeting. And just thank you. Okay, yeah. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Judy made the motion,
I'll second.
Pam seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Well, we came in under 10 o'clock, so I guess that's good.
Christine,
I didn't get the calendar.